meeting to order.
Okay.
All right. All right, call meeting to order. And first action, approve minutes from 12/21/20.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, changes? No? All right. All those in favor?
By roll call, we have Jen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Micah.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Any citizens' comments? And I'm sorry, I can't see people if they're waving at this point. I have to rely on Kevin or Pam.
I don't see anybody.
All right. All right, we'll move on to presentation of school programs.
Gail, do you have anything for this part? Okay, she's good. I have nothing at this time.
You're good. All right. So old business, tuition contract.
The only thing I can say is there's a joint board meeting of SAU 9 and 13 on the 28th. And I believe Jack Waldron from Tamworth will be either collecting information or providing some information regarding the cooperative school planning committee. So that relates to the tuition contract.
Great. Okay. And you have our contingency, our folks, right? So you're all set there. Great. Okay. All right. Moving on to instructional issues. Jerry. We're going to talk about the second reading and adoption of policies 1 through 24.
Sorry, you caught me sleeping there for a second. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what am I supposed to present? I'll make a motion to approve policy changes 1 through 24 as presented on the agenda.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
We're all muted. We're like,
Yeah,
unmute.
we're all over it, Jerry.
Thanks, Darlene.
Micah and Kate, you weren't here when we were discussing this before, but you can still ask questions about any individual policy if you want. But if there's no individual changes that need to be made, then we can approve them all at once anyway. But you can still ask questions or discuss any of the individual policies if you may want to.
Awesome.
So you had a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion to approve all of them at one time, Jen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Micah. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Does anyone have any changes or discussion? These again are all second reading, so we've been over all of these policies already individually. Okay, hearing none.
Okay, roll call vote to approve all of the policies 1 through 24. Jen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Kate, and Micah.
Yes.
Great. Okay, FYI, Amanda Fisher, Katz, I'm not going to pronounce the last name, long-term substitute aide. Cohan? Yes.
FYI. Yeah.
All right. That's
Yeah,
great.
that's great.
Okay.
Do you see her title?
Okay.
All right, moving on to business affairs, the 2021 budget status report. Did everyone get Lily's latest version sent out? I think it was today or yesterday. I know I saw it. It's very nicely done, easy to read. Okay. Any questions on our current budget for 2021? If not, we'll just go right to reviewing the draft for the 21-22 proposed budget and the warrant articles.
Okay, all right, here, hold on one second.
Wow. Kevin.
Try not to make it busy.
That's pretty
Is this
tricky.
the
You're good at
latest one
this.
that Lily sent over?
What's that?
Is this the latest one Lily just sent over 2 days ago?
This is the one that was in the, I believe it's the same one that was out in the packet that went out Friday. What day is it?
The date is
Today's
the 13th.
Tuesday.
Okay, just checking.
So this
Right.
one includes the full-time special ed position and the $70,000 for the building committee.
Let's just double check.
I know the one Lily sent out the other day did. I don't know if the one in the packet did, though. I just read the one that came out the other day.
It's easy to find the architect piece. It's on page 10 there, Kevin.
Okay,
I
Yeah.
think so.
hold on one second. I'll go down. And page 10.
It's there.
Boom, 70,000 right there.
There
Yeah,
it is. Okay,
all right, sorry. We'll go back up to start at the top. Now, I don't know if you want to go
Oh,
through
boy.
line by line or how you would like to do this, overviews. We could take a look at page 1, kind of go through this piece for the general public, and then Gail, you can kind of chime in if you'd like.
Sure thing.
So, on this page, you'll see all of the salaries of your regular ed teachers. There were some changes made. I'm going to try and defer to Gail, but I know that the world language or the foreign language tutor, there's a little bit of a change for that. Do you want to speak to that, Gail?
Well, we had just increased the number of hours from 7 hours to 12. That will enable her to spend more time and become more of our staff and work more together. It also hopefully will encourage more quality, high quality applicants. We've struggled to find people to fill that position. So we're hoping by giving a few more hours and having them be a lot more collegial with the staff, we'll have some great success with the program.
If you take a look at these 2 lines right here, those are health insurance. So the personnel committee, and you folks approve this, there's a switch in the health insurance plan. It's going to a $1,500 deductible. And this is a move that through this budget process, every employee in SAU 9 hopefully will be on the same plan with the same provider for the first time in forever. So this is, you'll see some significant savings in the health insurance piece. Along those lines, you'll see retirement costs have gone up. You folks don't have a ton of employees, but you do have some. And the rates for retiree health, retiree contributions did go up, and that's done by RSA. So you don't really get a choice. So the employee contribution has jumped up. So you'll see a move right in this area here for the employee contribution. Any questions on regular ed staffing and personnel? And this, again, it's based upon a 3% increase, or the raises are built in at the maximum level, even though some folks may not get the maximum. You have to budget those accordingly. You'll see the tuition lines at the middle school, in the high school, and Lily, do you know the change in the tuition? The number of students at the high school next year? I have it here.
I have the middle school numbers for 7th and 8th grade broke down, but I don't have the number of high school students listed here.
Yeah, I have it here. So this year in the budget for Jackson, 30.22 students. And last year you had 25.4 students. So there's additional students at the high school level. So that's why you'll see a significant increase at in the tuition there. Going down, you'll see basic supplies, art, all the supplies, books. I don't know if there are any highlights. It looks like it's pretty stable, Gail, all the way through, with
Right.
the exception of computer literacy software, maybe at $700.
Yes, and the, you'll find later on the computer contracted services went down. We don't need as many contracted services and repairs because Allison can do a lot of that herself. So we just moved some of that money into the technology, into the purchasing computer line.
Yes. Okay. Any questions on those so far? And here is where you'll see the increase to a full-time special education teacher. And Gail, I don't know if you want to speak to the needs related to that?
Well, we had several new students and increased needs in our student population that a 50% teacher would not be able to meet those needs. So we're increasing that to a full-time position.
ESOL, those are more placeholders in case you should need those. You can see that they haven't tapped into those, but those summer programming, stipends for co-curricular, all of those have stayed the same. And please, as board members, if you have questions, just stop us and we'll go back.
Kevin, just since we went over it there, at the budget meeting that we had, we discussed that special ed position a lot more thoroughly. And we were in full support of it and recommending to the board to add it to the budget for approval.
And then,
Thanks, Jerry.
can I ask another question about special ed too? So is that like the person in the role has like just kept creeping up, like Jenny's hours just kind of keep getting more and more this year? Is that what, like the person in that role, like, do we have to hire someone else, or is the person just willing, like, is Jenny willing to just continue to just increase, I guess?
I would be careful about speaking about individual people.
Yeah, not individual people, but like, do we need to, I don't want to speak about, I was trying not to, but then at the same time, so do we need to hire anybody else, or is the person like this year in that role willing to just continue to increase their hours?
So typically, when a position gets increased to that amount, it does get advertised because it does create a new position. The person in the role obviously can apply, but it's up to them whether they want to be full-time or not, and those type of things there. So it will be advertised, and in fairness to the position, but be that as it may, I'm sure Gail's had conversations with staff members.
And so it gets advertised as a full-time special ed position, and we no longer have a part-time special ed position.
Right, it's not in addition to, it's in place of.
Okay, perfect. I guess that's what I was asking in not a
Yeah.
great way.
All right, and then you'll see after-school programming, a little bit of a reduction there. The guidance position, no real changes there. The nursing piece is just budgeting whatever increases would come with that. Psychological testing, 6,500, that's where it was last year. Speech services, physical therapy, occupational therapy, technology coordinator. Again, if you have questions, feel free. Library services. So one of the things we want to point out here is that Bartlett had been, I guess, selling off some of the services for library to Jackson. And Bartlett has made the determination that they need a full-time library media specialist. So there won't be shared services for that position next year. So Gail will have to advertise for that position. So if you know of any really good,
I was going to say, going to go for the Spanish-speaking media specialist.
that's it. Yeah, there's a good technology background too. Sure. Salaries to the school board stay the same. You're underpaid for the job that you do. Treasurer, salary, clerk, audit, legal professional services. Those are placeholders in case you need a legal opinion. And then you'll see some of the other pieces. So this is a new line. And it's under strategic planning. And I don't know if Mike or Jerry, you guys want to talk a little bit about why that came through and how it get put into the budget?
Yeah, we talked about this in our last board meeting
Yeah.
too. So I think we went into, yeah, so we covered that in our last board meeting.
Just for the general public, they may want to, if somebody's tuning in.
Yeah, definitely. So this is allocation for strategic planning so the board can move forward with initiatives that come up where we need to have a budget to fulfill on them. So that could look like different trainings that the board needs to undergo, things that can then impact the whole school and the community, and to let us be able to be a little bit more agile with responding to needs as we see them and having a budget line item for this. And one thing that Kevin shared with us is that this is a pretty customary thing for other boards to be able to have accessible to them. It's something that we hadn't had in the Jackson budget.
Yeah, things pop up. You might need to do a study and might need to have an outside person come in and take a look at things. And it just allows you a little bit of latitude as a board to respond to, as you said, Micah, very well, to different issues that come up. Okay, the SAU share of the budget. You get into the principal's salaries. Again, you'll see health insurance, retirement jumps up a little bit. Supplies, all those lines look very similar to last year. Software in the principal's office, you'll see again, moderate increases to some of those lines. Custodians and maintenance, you'll see the next section here. And all of the utilities costs. Last year you had a lot of work that was done to the building. I believe it was the flooring, is that correct? Was that what was last year? You dropped that down this year.
Yes.
And other than that, everything looks pretty stable. I don't know if you have any questions. Contracted services just for the grounds. The bus drivers, there were adjustments that were made to salaries last year that you'll see some increases there. Again, decrease in the health insurance, which is a good thing. Retirement goes up. One goes up, one goes down. And ironically, it comes out just about the same as what it was last year. Field trips. Hopefully at some point we can get back to having field trips for our students and staff. Summer programming. Health exams for the bus drivers. Okay, and then you'll see $70,000 for architect engineering services. Jerry, I'll let you take over if you want, or whoever's on that facility committee.
Jerry's turn.
So that came about through the work the facility committee is doing in regards to finding space at the school. So from between our last meeting and this meeting, so we met with the architect, Mike Couture, and looked at all of our options, and basically boils down to the idea that our only option is to build new space, that we're looking to have more space either for preschool, additional office space, additional classroom space. If you look at the 2 classrooms in the old building, neither one of those is of sufficient size to be a modern classroom. We don't have space for a preschool. We don't have space for storage for a lot of our maintenance equipment. We really need 2 additional office spaces. And Gail, if I'm missing something, certainly pipe in here. Our OT speech room is too small. all the offices down that corridor are kind of on the small side. So, and additional meeting space for staff is all the new spaces that we're kind of looking for. We've exhausted the upstairs, we've exhausted the basement. The basement was determined that, yes, we could do things to the basement, but we're talking around $250,000 or so to get us a room that really can't be a classroom. Might be able to be used as a library, but not very well. So there's a lot of money to spend to not gain a whole lot of usable space. So what we were looking to do is to spend, to look at designs for expanding the school. And before our budget hearing, we're actually planning to hopefully see some basic sketches on what new space might look like. And the $70,000 would then be used to take the sketches, the basic look of what we might be able to do to expand, and engineer those out so that we would know how much it would cost to actually build that kind of space. And that $70,000 number was kind of the top end of that, we were hoping. And so that is why that is in there. Oh,
So-
incidentally, the facility committee is also the budget committee. And it was also approved by the budget committee to be in here. So, although not enthusiastically endorsed by the budget committee to be in here, it really needs to be discussed by the board to see whether this is something we really want to add to this budget or not.
So Jerry, I have a question that, well, I'm just thinking from a community standpoint. The 15,000 that we were allotted last year, what exactly did that cover that is not included in the Nick, where did that 15,000 go?
So that $15,000 was not to design new space. That
Right.
$15,000 was to, and again, that was a top end number. It might not all be spent, but that was to do the initial phase of this, which was to do the interviews with the staff, to do the interviews with the school board to determine what is it that the school is looking to do as far as adding space was concerned. So that's what that was primarily there for, is to get the process rolling and to see what we needed to do to meet our needs. And so that was what that was for. The difference between that and the $70,000, the $70,000 is again, so in that $15,000 is going to be included is the basic sketches to see what new space might look like in the building. So that is included in that. But once you have that, in order to bring that to a place where you know how much it's going to cost, you need to do real engineering, you need to do real architectural drawings, and you need to spec out a building from A to Z, meaning you need to know what your light fixtures are going to look like, what your doorknobs are going to look like, and what the flooring is going to be. And that's a whole different level of design and work to be done. And every project that we've ever done, I mean, the last addition to the school, for instance, that was $75,000 that we had in the budget to do just that piece of it. And it was really to take a concept from what this looks like this to actually, this is how much it's going to cost. This is what the bond will be for it, and this is the year we can start doing it and put it out to bid. So it's designed to take something from an idea to putting it out to bid.
Okay.
And if I could just add another thing that he did do, as Jerry alluded to, there were many years worth of plans and documents that Jim Hill had saved from previous editions, and basement plans and second floor plans that he took, and he reviewed all of the previous drawings for all of the options. So he spent a good deal of time reviewing those plans as well.
Great. And who is this again?
His name was Mike Couture,
Right.
someone that Jim Hill connected us with, who had done some work for the district in the past.
Okay. Great. I just know the community will ask, so I just want to make sure we
Yeah, and I think to be,
do it as a community, like a,
I think as far as whether or not the board is, wants to support this and whether the community wants to support it, we really have to ask ourselves what this is doing is this is in hopes of actually designing a space and building it. So this is like an end game, like to endorse the $70,000, you're saying we want to build new space into the school. So that's what that's for. With the $15,000 we spent last year was kind of exploring that. This is, these are ideas that we can come up with This is taking an idea that we came up with and saying, this is what we want to build. So it'd be hard to be in favor of the $70,000 if you aren't also in favor of actually building an addition that may cost upwards of $500,000 to $700,000. Is kind of what that's seeding. So that's what it's saying. It's saying that, we'd like to do that. Because again, by killing the idea of the basement for in the 250 range, 250 to 300 range, we're talking about a project that's going to be upwards of $500,000.
So the next logical question for me from a community standpoint would be, where do we see the population of the school going? I know with COVID and people in town, just with my connections, that I don't see people leaving town. More and more people are coming to town and want to enroll their kids here. So every couple of years, there's people who say we should shut the school down and move it over to Bartlett. So this is really a community investment in our school, and looking at the current situation and how things are playing out, as I do believe more people are just going to be living in town, hence more children will be in town. So,
And Jen, I would agree with you wholeheartedly there. And the only thing I would add to that statement is when people talk about shutting down Jackson and going to Bartlett, they have to understand that that's actually going to cost us more money than we currently spend.
yes, and we have to explain that to them, but that's their first thought is, it won't be more money. So, but we know that it will be.
But I just think it's important to explain that to people. Like that's always an option for us if Bartlett can do it, which that might be a question for the future too. But but I think that that's really what we need to weigh as a board. Fortunately that question goes beyond the facility committee, and would be a whole board kind of discussion. Where do we see the future population of the school going? And I think the trend is going to be, we're going to have more students because of this. As people are moving here, not just because of COVID. Well, COVID was the impetus, but the number of people that are now able to work remotely and want to be here in the Mount Washington Valley, Jackson in particular, I don't see that going away anytime in the next 10 years or so.
I think there's also a conversation to be had about the benefit of, keeping our school inside of that, so that Jackson becomes one of the places in the valley where those young families are, for all the other reasons that we want to have like a thriving community here. So to pivot toward not only the additional cost for moving all of our students to Bartlett, but also just thinking about if the valley is growing in population and it's a place people desire to live in, per Jerry's point, like having Jackson be one of the places that can collect, young families and do a great job with it. I think it's a big asset for Jackson, and it's something that we already have.
I think pre-pandemic, we were already hearing and listening to the space needs of the staff population of the school. Gail, everybody talking about, really, really needing more space. Statistically, New Hampshire has the highest rate of population growth to any other state in New England. That's something that economically here, I think we should be listening to, with the space restraints of our school to start, with the overall population growth of our community, and our hope that, the increase of student population of the grammar school will just continue, and having that kind of strategic plan of building this space for tomorrow only benefits us because we needed the space yesterday.
Mm-hmm. This is
And I
excellent
think
conversation. Oh, sorry, Gail, I didn't mean to
I was
cut you
just
off.
going to say, the one final point that I would make, being a resident of a community that has decided to close their schools and send their children out, you then lose the ability to be autonomous and plan curriculum and things of that nature. You pay your tuition and you lose a lot of the control you have over the quality of what you're getting for a product. So that's really a benefit of keeping the control local.
So I think we're all on the same page, all have excellent points, and I just wanted to make sure we voiced those at this time, because this is a question that will come up. And if we're all on the same page when we talk to our community members, it'll just help things move along. So
Yeah, I think a big question is going to be the projection, and Jerry said it, he can see it for 10 years. I can see it happening for a while as well, but that'll be a community question.
Mhm.
What happens in 4 or 5 years when all this goes away? will those kids go back to wherever they came from, or so I think we'd be faced with that question. But I think no doubt that we need to provide a facility that, is able to handle the kids that we have. And, I think someone made the comment, it isn't, it's not, it has to be state of the art, but it should be a 2021 classroom, and not a 1950s classroom where it's small and, confined. And we found that over the last year, where the kids need space, we need to spread them out. Even with small groups, they need the space, and the teachers need the space.
Yeah.
So, I'm an advocate for this as well.
And I think, Darlene, your point's really good. I think remembering, right, we're all in this COVID reality. And I think in terms of talking to the community, to be able to say, this has been a conversation. I mean, Jerry, how long has this been a conversation for? And Jen, like, you would know for how many years of like, we're up against the edge of this space. And I mean, this was the intention before COVID, we had started this journey. COVID makes it clear that it's, it's like the final straw, but it's not even the final straw. We were on this trajectory before COVID. I think, helping speak to that, since we're all in alignment about that, will probably help people.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
And Micah, you brought up a good point there that Jim Hill pointed out really well at our facility meeting, which is, and this is really where the discussion on the basement went, was that, when we're spending dollars to improve the space needs at the school, to really think about what you need for the future, as opposed to just spending X amount of dollars or $250,000 to build space that's going to help, but doesn't really address the real needs that you have. And so it's what we've done all along. I mean, the question about space has been going on in the school since as long as I've been in Jackson. And it probably will forever be that way, because we are limited in the size of the property that we have and what we can do. And each time that we've put on additional space, we've really thought pretty carefully about what our future needs are going to be. And we will certainly do that this time as well.
Great. All right. Just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jen.
Kevin?
All right, so you get the $70,000 there. Food service does cost you money to run that program. You will see some revenue later on for reimbursable meals. The capital reserve funds, right now they're zeroed. You folks will discuss those when we go to the warrant articles. On the right-hand side down here, where it says capital reserve funds, you can see how much money is in those. So in your bus fund, you have 71,000. Under the maintenance trusts, you have 89,000. Under special education capital reserve, you have 171,000. Your Whitney Trust Fund has 44,000. And your tuition trust fund has 76,000. So most of those funds are in halfway decent shape. You're in good shape there. So that gets you, your operational budget is $2,976,018. That's without grants. So because you do receive grants in the amount of anticipated $8,000 for IDEA, Title I, budgeting a modest $600. Title IIA, $5,000, and your rural school fund for $3,500. So when you add those to the operating budget here, the amount to be appropriated is $2,993,118, which represents a 9.7% increase. So when we get to the actual warrant, if you don't have any changes, this would be the number that you would place on the warrant for your operating budgets. Okay. So now we'll go to the warrant articles. These were discussed again. And remember, the townsfolk will vote on the operating budget. And then each one of these will have an article should you put those on there. So you have the bus reserve fund, And it looks like putting in $15,000. Typically, you put that amount in each year, and then when it comes time to buy a new bus, you have enough money in the reserve fund to buy the bus. The maintenance trust fund right now, the budget committee board members recommended not putting anything in there at this point. Special education, it is recommended $25,000. And then the Whitney Trust Fund has that $3,000 in there each year. So that's an additional $43,000 that could be approved. Okay.
And Kevin, in that dollars, the $3,000 is a placeholder, and that money comes out of the Whitney Trust Fund usually, or
Right.
that's where it would be coming out of. So that's doesn't add to the tax base. The $25,000 that is in for the special ed, back in September when we retained dollars from the undesignated fund balance, I recommended retaining an additional 25 over what we normally would. And the way we would pay that back is this coming September when we decide what to retain. That's when I would favor returning that $25,000 so that it doesn't impact the tax rate to add that $25,000 into the special ed fund.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. So you have your the operating budget and the amount that is being asked for. But then for those who are still learning this, you do have revenues. Okay. So those offset some of the costs. So if you have students who tuition to Jackson, so they aren't residents of Jackson and they want to come to Jackson Grammar School, they pay a tuition. It's anticipated $15,000 there. Tuition for summer school looks like zero right now because we aren't sure exactly what summer school will look like. And then you'll see other local revenue, that $9,000. Lily, help me out. What does that consist of? The other local revenue.
Is it the lunch? No, that's the board.
No.
Nope.
You'll see lunch down here.
Oh, is that the Whitney?
Most of it is the Whitney.
It is?
You're
Okay.
sending money back, and then you also often receive unanticipated gifts that are placed there as well.
Can I ask, I don't know if I just missed it, was tuition for an out of like town person 10 before? Has it gone up to 15?
No, if you have staff children,
Yep.
the first one is I believe $0. The second one, there is a cost to it. So
There's
you may have some staff.
2,500 for the second child, yeah.
So you may have a combination of outside plus staff second children that would be there.
Got it. Thank you.
So Kate, the tuition only change if the board votes to change it.
Right. I didn't think that we did. I was like, wait, did I miss something? Possible.
We try to follow policy. All right. So then you get the National Forest revenues and then lunch monies. So this is your reimbursable meals at $4,600. Adults, if they pay, you might get some money from that. Also, other federal monies that come in for lunches. So your revenue, you can expect, and again, this is anticipated, of $50,400. Okay. And then you get to this piece, which is, it really is an estimate. So I know people want to know what it is, but you won't know that until all the books close and you know how much of a fund balance you have. So right now, you see $0 in their fund balance retained. So that's why it's important to keep an eye on, your expenditures throughout the year. And obviously, if you have $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 left over at the end of the year, that would change as well. So some years you can see you have bigger numbers, and other years you have smaller numbers. This year we are spending money due to COVID, so hard to predict exactly what that will be this year. You'll see the town valuation. That's how they determine the tax rate, what gets appropriated at the local level, as well as the state education tax. And then you'll see the tax rate does jump up to $6.17. And if the maintenance trust funds or the, capital reserve funds are approved, then you're up to $6.26. And again, these are estimates. It's real difficult to predict exactly what that is. Am I forgetting anything, Lily?
No, it looks great.
Oh, there you go. Good, good. Any questions on this part here, folks? That's your overall budget. All right. So I'm not going to go back to the beginning because I might lose my place here. But the next item on the agenda is to take a look at your warrant articles.
Mhm.
And at this point, the board will have to take a vote as to what would want to be on the actual articles. So the first article, it's up to you. Jen, you can read this or however.
Okay, you're on a roll.
Hey, guys, before you start, it's Lily. Kevin, I sent you a text message. The maintenance trust warrant article is still sitting in there, but Whitney was removed
Okay,
in error. So I wanted to point that out before there was confusion there. And warrant article number 5 is a carryover from last year.
so we'll X that out. So Article 1 is your operating budget. The budget that was presented to you tonight has $2,993,118. So if you feel comfortable placing that on the warrant, somebody should make the motion, seconded, and then you would vote on that.
I'll make a motion. I don't remember the exact amount, but I will make a motion.
$2,993,118.
Thank you.
And I second it, Darlene.
Is there any discussion about that? So again, for explanatory purposes, this goes on to the warrant, and then you have a hearing. And if the board chooses to at that time, they can amend the number up or down. Then it goes to your town meeting, your school district meeting, and then you have discussion about it there as well, and can get amended there as well. And then people vote in an operating budget.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Kevin,
Is
I'm
there
sorry. Can we confirm how all of the official stuff will have, like, are we doing all of this kind of official hearing and all of that stuff remote? Did we confirm that?
we will get to that. That's the next agenda item coming up.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. So Article 1, and we have a motion and second by roll call vote. All those in favor of placing $2,993,118 on the warrant. Janet Saldi,
Yes.
Jerry,
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Micah.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so Article 2 is, did they,
This shouldn't,
there should be, you decided not to put any money into that expendable trust fund, is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so I'm going to take that off unless somebody wants to put something in there.
Kevin, if what the budget committee had decided from recommendations from the facility committee was to, if we have money to retain this year, for instance, if we did retain $50,000 last year, which I wouldn't mind actually seeing in that box where there's a zero, because we have $50,000 of retained money from last year. So in September, we will, whatever we don't spend in the 2021 school year, we can retain that in addition to the 50,000 that we already have in there, or give it all back. What we're hoping to do is that if we have money to retain, we would retain $20,000 from this fiscal year. And then in 2021, 2022, appropriate $20,000 to bring that number up to $100,000, which is where we kind of felt we'd be comfortable capping that maintenance trust fund at. So that was our plan for that, which is why we weren't recommending to put any money in this year.
Okay, good. All right. So Article 3 is to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of, I think you had, how much? Ooh, $25,000 has been recommended to put into the capital reserve special education fund.
That'll become Article 2 now, correct?
Correct, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, motion.
So moved, or second?
Any discussion? This is again to place $25,000 on the warrant for the purpose of putting into the capital reserve fund for special education. Any discussion, questions? All right, by roll call, all those in favor of putting $25,000 on there, Jen and Saldi,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Kate,
Muted.
Yes.
I was muted.
Micah.
Yes.
Okay, so then you have Article 4, which will become Article 3. This is for your capital reserve school bus fund. You had a recommendation to put $15,000 into that account.
Yes, motion.
Jen, motion,
Second.
second. Any discussion by board members? Okay, all those in favor by roll call of placing $15,000 into the capital reserve fund. So Jen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Micah.
Yes.
All right, so then I think Article 5 was, there was a discussion as to whether this was the $70,000 architectural fee would go on as a warrant article or in the budget. You folks adopted it in the budget, so we can strike Article 5
Great.
unless there's discussion about that.
No.
But we'll want to add the one for the Whitney Center, right?
That's right.
Off by accident, so but we'll approve it.
That's right. So we will add the Whitney Center Trust Fund in the amount of
3,000.
$3,000. So we will add an article for that. Need a motion to put $3,000 on.
Motion.
Okay. Second.
Second?
Okay, good. And $3,000. All right. Any discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor of placing $3,000 in the Whitney Center Trust Fund by roll call, Jen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Micah.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's it for your budget and your Sorry.
Thank you.
Ma-
That was great. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we'll get back to you.
Correspondence for Conway Bond.
Yeah, so in your packet, and if you've followed it, the Conway School Board decided that they would like to move forward for a bond to replace the 500 some odd windows at Kennett High School. So in your tuition contracts, it does say that the Conway District is supposed to notify you folks 4 months prior to the vote. Well, they actually, because of the way things went, they went out to bid. Well, they were in the process of going out to bid. They last Monday decided that they wanted to put a bond on there. So in reality, they didn't give the 4 months notice. They're only giving you about 3.5 months worth of notice. But previously, when they've done any work, they do send out letters. So this is the notification related to that.
So we're not going to do air conditioning, right? We're just going to do windows.
Windows, 500 some odd windows, yeah.
I'd be in favor of air conditioning too.
I'd like to see that. I mean, yeah.
Kevin, if I ran the numbers right, it looked like the first year was going to cost us probably around like $5,000 and about $24,000 per year after that for the town of Jackson.
I believe that's pretty close. I don't know, Lily, if you have any numbers, but when we talked about the other towns, yes, I believe is somewhere around that amount.
Yeah,
was-
it'll go up or down based off of obviously the items that affect your share of that overall bond cost.
So it looked like it was like about 5,000 the first year and roughly 24,000 up until 2026
Ugh,
is what we're looking at.
a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
I did hear though that the windows will actually, some more windows will actually open more than they do now. So that maybe they have to have more airflow if they need to.
Plus
Okay.
they'll be actually safe and not fall out.
Yes,
Right.
that's
Hopefully.
a good thing.
Detail.
I mean, you read the contract, we're pretty much obligated to do this unless we wanted to no longer be in the contract, in which case we just wouldn't have a place to send our kids to school, but we still have to pay the money for it.
Right.
But then we wouldn't, but
That's
then
a
we wouldn't
great way
have
to
to
put
pay,
it.
but then we wouldn't have to pay for this bond.
That's right. Yeah.
So
we could-
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the bond for the con. Is that the right next step?
I don't need, you don't really have to take action. It would only
All
be
right,
if you wanted to challenge, the Conway School Board and say, hey, we aren't in favor of it. And we're gonna back out of the contract, much like Jerry said.
yeah.
Yes,
No, the
basically
only
we could pull out of the overall contract. If we didn't want to pay this bond, we could not do it. But what that would do is that we'd no longer be in the contract, but we would still be obligated to pay the initial portion of the contract. So we'd be spending $250,000 to $300,000 a year to not have a place to send our kids to school. It's really the fairest way to put language into a contract so that the other districts are also obligated to meet new bonds. For Conway School for the town of Conway to float this in 1 year, they came to the conclusion that that's going to impact their tax rate too much. So they're bonding it. It really is the fairest way to do it. I mean, and when we do a new contract with Conway or a co-op, we would have language in it that's still going to say basically the same thing as this. It's good language. It makes sense. It's not great that we're going to be spending $24,000 a year, but it's getting us new windows that need to be done. So I think it's not a bad way to take care of it.
I'd like to make a personal note to the facilities committee that when we're looking at the new portion of the building that we may be building, that we take some of this into consideration for air conditioning and or windows. So
Awesome.
out there.
Noted.
All right, consider acceptance of anonymous donations for $1,000 and $4,000.
There is a board report that goes with that. You had 2 anonymous donations to support the Jackson Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee's work. One in the amount of $1,000 and one in the amount of $4,000. And they wish to remain anonymous.
I make a motion to that effect with
Wonderful.
great thanks.
Yep.
Second with
Awesome.
appreciation.
Yay. Thank you for our community and their support.
Awesome. Okay, great.
Any discussion, questions, comments? All right, by roll call vote, Jen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Micah.
Yes.
Okay, it's back to you, Kevin, with a new COVID update.
All right, yeah, no, just you folks are probably getting tired of the little bips and the bleeps and the different emails that are going out. We are, trying to be as transparent as possible whenever we do get these cases. We do also do a statistical analysis of the numbers in our schools compared to what's happening in the community, the larger community. Bartlett did have a spike in the numbers, and it's really it's concerning, so much so that had an impact on the staff and the way schooling was. So last week Bartlett did go remote, and over the weekend we got some more calls, and we made the determination to go remote for this week. I can't promise that we'll be back in school next week. We have to see where these numbers go. And it just is one of those things that, Jackson, knock on wood, Gail staff, the community's done a terrific job of following all those protocols. But the numbers everywhere are extremely high. And, the other elementary schools, you have a case here, a case there. The importance of cohorting is really important. But we're watching those numbers 24/7. The doctors, I tell you, the medical community, Dr. Saunders and Dr. Laracy, they have no problem giving calls on Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, Monday mornings, whenever it is. They are dynamite about following up, trying to support us. We had a meeting this morning at 7:15 with superintendents and nurses. Pam Stimson sits in on that. And we just kind of review all these pieces and start to take a look at the trends and see, at what point is it going to be too much to continue. Jackson, as I said, is in really good shape. The high school, they have a big population, but they're below the community transmission. So it's really Bartlett we're keeping an eye on right now, and they will definitely be remote for the rest of this week. And who knows about next week? It's too early for me to tell at this point. As far as, I'll turn it over to Pam Stimson. The vaccination piece, Pam, I don't know if you want to just give them an update of where we are at with related to that in the schools.
Right now, 2A, which is teachers, are publicly, they're looking at starting in March and going through April, although some conversations we've been able to have with DHHS officials are telling us we might get things as early as February. So my goal right now, the nurses are joking, is for me to be so irritating that they just vaccinate everybody to get me off of their case. So Kevin will tell you I'm doing a good job at that probably. But there was a little bit of a loophole also in 1A where our special ed clinicians, because they bill Medicaid to schools, were invited at the same point in time that our school nurses were invited to be vaccinated. So our last of our Conway speech pathologist is getting her first shot tomorrow. All of our school nurses have been vaccinated. We are not mandating vaccination, but we're encouraging it. And the next go round, starting this Friday, all of our staff who are 65 and older, well, everyone in our community is 65 and older, or who have 2 comorbidity factors that are listed by the CDC will be able to get vaccinated. Right now, we've got Troop E, Conway Fire, and Glen Fire, and you probably saw in the paper today that Memorial is expanding a vaccination site over to the old observatory building in the Citizens Bank building. They'll be doing between 200 and 250 shots a day just for New Hampshire residents right now. So the final thing we're looking into is to find out how we can support our teachers who are Maine residents, but teaching in our SAU9 schools, how we're going to be able to support them. So just a brief overview, but staff's being fantastic. Nurses are amazing. We're here because of their hard work with all of our staff and everything the families have done to stay focused on wearing their masks and staying socially distanced, proper hygiene, and just walking the walk. So
And the last piece I'll just add is Pam and I have kind of been working on, there was some concern of staff members and members of the community that were getting tested and then they were getting bills for like $100, $110. Nobody should be paying those, okay? And when I say that, I'm not saying it so you get in trouble. No, they shouldn't be paying that. They should be contacting their insurance companies. They can, in a worst case scenario, if it's school related, they can give me a call or Pam at the SAU office. The governor was responsive when we called him because that was a concern that we had, and Pam actually had a chance to talk to the head of the DHHS, and we've been working with the insurance companies as well. So if people are getting bills and they're fearful that they should have paid, a lot of times it's just a quick call to the insurance company, and if not, then we can help support that. So
also, can I just add, Kevin, as well as calling your insurance company, people are getting double bills. So they're getting a bill from their insurance company, and then they're also getting a bill from the lab, usually Nordex, and phone calls, just saying, I understand I shouldn't be paying this. Most of them are just being written off and going back and billing the state. So our insurance companies throughout the state are working closely on getting that set aside, but the law says people should not be paying. So you have to call both though, and we can help.
I can appreciate your teachers' frustration. I used to teach in Connecticut, and many of my friends back there were told, go ahead, schedule. They did schedule. They started getting their shots, and then they got letters and emails saying, we're sorry, you cannot have your shot. So there's a very big, it's all through Connecticut. I have a niece that's 25. She was scheduled for next Saturday, all scheduled. My other colleagues, so, it's a big problem. So they're prioritizing. It's not going as smoothly as we would hope. So, hopefully your people here in the Conway area will just hang tough.
I'm sure we
I also
will.
know that the decisions aren't totally made yet, right? So like these decisions are all being made. Jen and I were having a conversation earlier, just with kind of our day jobs and looking out for restaurant workers and trying to figure out where they fall. I spent some time on 211 today on hold and got a really lovely person who was willing to answer a whole bunch of my questions. And I think that the more vocal any group of people can be, the better. I do know that when you call the governor's office, a person picks up the phone and you say, I would like to be counted to ask the governor this. I would like to be counted to ask the governor to please prioritize teachers' vaccinations. And somebody physically puts down a tally mark and those numbers are counted. And so that's also just as far as having a voice to be heard. It's an avenue. I don't know how weighty it is, but it's something. So, because the decisions really are just all being made in a really fluid way.
That's really helpful.
I lost Kate. She's still talking.
That's it for me, Jen.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Gail.
So I'm happy to report that we are at the moment, knock on wood, fully staffed. everybody's off of quarantine and everything is working well. We are, as Kevin said, watching Bartlett also because we're very closely connected to them. Our staff members have children there and so forth. So, but we continue to be vigilant about masks and outside and hand washing and, sanitizing the whole works. And so far, I'm incredibly grateful to all the families who are all seem to be doing the right thing, keeping their children home, calling for advice, and getting those tests when they need to. We've had no pushback at all. So just piggybacking on what Kevin and Pam said, I'm grateful how seriously everyone seems to be taking this for the kids. We have been working on our social emotional learning. We had a guest speaker known as Cassie Yackley with us last Friday. That was very well received by the staff. She actually did a couple of case studies with our kiddos. That was super helpful. And because, as some of you might imagine, returning to school after the pandemic was challenging for a few of the kiddos. And so we were really looking for strategies to help keep everybody moving forward and making the most of their education at school. So grateful for that and looking forward to continuing that work at the end of the year. So great. Thanks, Jen.
I just wanted to note here that I was really glad, Gail, that you brought up the kind of interconnectedness of the JGS and JBES communities. I know that those, like, we really overlap a lot with Bartlett, and I just wanted to put out there that I've had 2 parents reach out and just voice their concern about how our communities overlap, and just kind of as we watch the numbers at Bartlett grow, and just wanted to just kind of note that here.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Board member issues. Update on the committee report. So Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee.
I can hop in here. Yeah, so yesterday I shared with the board a proposal from a DEI facilitator named Carlos Hoyt, who's someone that we're really excited about working with. He is currently the director of a program that is K through 8 and was specifically running DEI programming for a school, and prior to that was at a K through 6 school. So the intent for that is that the inside of the DEI committee, we recognize that we want help. We want to do this as the best way we can, and we want to integrate it with our school and our community the best we can. And none of us on this committee are poised to do that, right? Like, none of us are DEI facilitators. So what we want to do is get some help, and we want to have it so that we can even have it as we're planning what the next steps are. So we did a survey, which I shared the results with you of. And when we're rolling up our sleeves and saying, okay, now we have the survey, what now? To be able to work with this facilitator to help us frame what that is. So the proposal I sent is from Carlos, and what we would like to do is to work with him to refine that proposal to be the thing that, so that we can start the work that works best for us. So this is a version of it. There's going to be version 2.0 that the committee is going to work with Carlos on to make sure that it's aligned with everybody. And I wanted to bring it up to the board now because, as Kevin shared, we have these anonymous donations totaling $5,000 to advance the DEI work. So I thought that these should go together now, although what really, this is not the proposal that's in ink. And I think that's really important to share with people because there are pieces in it like, certain workshop ideas. And right now we're in the formulation stage. So what the committee wants to do is be able to say, great, we now have the resources to work with Carlos to refine this and to make the plan that's best for Jackson and start moving forward, working with him and creating that. Does that make sense?
It does. I think it's great and wonderful that you're making progress on it so quickly. I love that. And that you have some anonymous donations because our budget's set, we don't have any here. And that when I reviewed this, it does look like we're not asking anything really of the staff or the faculty at this point because they're tapped out right now, going forward. And they have a couple of other goals already on their plate as well. So this looks like we're trying to get things in order. My question would be, is 25 hours enough of Carlos's time to really help you? Because
That's a considerable amount of time. And I think the other piece that Gail and I talked about today was, seeing if what we can do is get a teacher on the DEI committee with us, because that would be really helpful to help give us that perspective. I mean, we have Gail and we have Victoria, but that's kind of a missing seat at the table. And there's some other ways too. We're talking about a community, a larger community listening session. But yes, Jen, I do think 25 hours will really help us, because we can be really efficient with it. And it's gonna really let us, set up our next school year and look at how we can better integrate this.
right. And one of the things that we're gonna talk about on the board discussion area is a goal setting session in April, May, because Gail has, and the staff has a lot coming at them. So I think really having the goal setting session in April, May with the current board, I'm assuming we're all running again, will be really helpful to put it all out there and what we have going on. So that's coming up from me later on. But this is great work. I mean, to find somebody and moving it along, I think is wonderful. So
Awesome.
my just concern is making sure that for the remainder of the year, how we not overly taxing our staff and the faculty at this point.
Yep. I think it's the balance of, and that's why Gail's sitting in that seat, and, she has her leadership, and that's why we'd love to have a teacher there. And I think it's the blend of making sure that we're not burdening staff, and we're also responding to something that at a board level, we decided was a priority.
Right.
So it's like having the finesse and the balance between those.
Good.
You know what, Michael, when I was looking through it yesterday, what struck me was that you really got some good teacher responses. And I think I would look to that. What hit me most was that they don't want you to send them a curriculum they have to work
Exactly.
with. The other thing that struck me, there were so many facets to this, so many facets. But I think you've got a really good base, and I think you got to take the information that you got through those answers and look at them and really analyze them. And you know what, I know these teachers have a lot on their plate now, so I think you've got some information, and I think you got to take that and your committee and run with that.
Yeah. And one of the great things, this kind of goes back to why we all are here, right? And why we're on the school board and why we want Jackson to keep having a school, because we have the ability to do this, right? We can move faster and we can create something by bringing someone like Carlos in and say, hey, this is us. And we don't want to plug and play curriculum. We want something that's really unique to who we are and what we're trying to do and what kind of, goals that we have as a school. So it's a way to leverage all of our best traits and make something that's unique to Jackson and unique to where we want to go and how we want our students to come out of this.
Yep,
So-
exactly.
Did you, and the committee, how did you find Carlos, and did you look into his background in other areas, or was there anybody else, any other candidates for this?
So as part of the work that I've done with the larger SAU Social Justice Committee, Pam and I did a bunch of research on lots of people in the area, and I vetted several of them. And Carlos it was interesting because we were looking for someone to work with the SAU, and that's still sort of pending. And inside of that, I came across Carlos and I was like, man, he's the fit for Jackson. And when we talked to the other people who have some potential, they're more SAU level, right? One person who we talked to is doing a whole state of Maine public education. So it doesn't become crafted in. And Carlos, that's really what set him apart from it. And he's been, so I think that's, and also the ability to work with us at a as needed basis really is fortunate for us from a budget standpoint, right? We're not signing up and saying, great, we're in for $40,000 on this. It's hey, let's start in this way. Let's see where we get to. Let's see what we need. He has a background as a psychotherapist, which I think is really interesting in terms of he really wants to just work with people about where they are on their journey and where the school is on its journey, and nowhere on that is good or bad. It's a journey, right? And I think that that approach is going to work really well here. So it's like, you know, these are separate committees, but the information was shared between them.
Great. And
He
then
specifically has a
is
K
this all
through
gonna
6
also,
background, right, Micah?
Exactly. He has a ton of experience in that with that school age with those kids. And I think that's critical for us because we don't, you know, this isn't a high school program. Like we want to make sure it's relevant to what we're doing for the grammar school.
and are we gonna dovetail into what the SAU is also doing? So we'll be
Yep.
able.
Yeah, but the SAU is, you know, they're just different timelines.
Right. I'm sure they're
So,
more
yeah,
behind a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right, great. And then will he also be pulling in some of the things that we're looking for Portrait of a Learner, which does
Absolutely.
a lot of it.
Absolutely. Yep. And that, yeah, I mean, that sort of, we can move into the board discussion because that kind of like, I mean, that ties on to this conversation we had last time about the strategic plan that Jerry and I are looking at, and all these things are woven together.
Great. Okay.
And Darlene brought up just the surveys and how thorough they were. And I just wanted to take a second just to thank every staff member who put some really significant thought and effort, as well as the alumni and the parents. And
Yeah.
just thank Gail for, I know that Gail supported some of the staff in carving out some time because I know that their plates are very full. And so just from the committee, just a thank you for everybody's time.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was nice. Yes. All right. Any other thoughts or discussion for the DEI committee? All right. So Micah, moving on to your other committee with Jerry, the facilities.
Man, I look like
You're on
that person.
fire this month. You are
Oh,
on
fire. Let's do it. So Jerry, actually, I mean, I feel like we already answered. Well, we talked about a lot of this. So,
fire.
the one, you know, Jerry gave we don't need to rehash that. I mean, this came to us in the budget. The one piece I wanted to flag that came from that letter, and Kevin, if you can scroll down to that letter or the update from the facilities committee, is that we wanted to make sure that at a board level, we talked about the Whitney Center. So we want to make sure that we have, oh geez, I just got rid of the wrong screen. So, you know, Jerry already went through all this. We've all read this. So the only piece that we haven't yet gone through right now is that a board level discussion takes place around the use of the Whitney Center for this time period and beyond. And that's the thing that we thought we needed to elevate to the board level and not have just a facilities committee conversation about.
Yes, I mean, and that started because part of what we were tasked with Mike Couture, the architect, was to find space for the immediate need. Actually, we weren't tasked with that. That came up because the COVID issue forced that front and center that we actually need space now, like this school year and next year. And obviously we can't build space between now and next school year. So where are we going to find that space? And at some point, we may be looking to use the Whitney Center to meet some of our needs there, and how that's going to impact the community at large. And I don't think we need to have that conversation this evening, but it's going to be on the radar anyway.
So maybe we could start taking a look at least Miss Susan, whoever's doing the scheduling of Gail and Susan of the Whitney, is it actually being used in capacity? Used?
Well, and you know, at our last facility meeting, Gail and John Stokey brought up that they're going to start seeing requests for booking for next year pretty soon. So I guess the decision we're going to have to make is, are we going to be booking time in the Whitney Center, and what's that going to look like, particularly if we have to use the main hall, the main room in the Whitney Center. It's not going to be the kind of thing where we can break that down every week so that people can use it for the weekend or use it in the evenings. And that's what we're going to be looking at anyway, and having to decide if we're going to limit the community's use of that building, and how that's going to impact that building and the community. So
That's gonna be a tough one.
Okay, so I'm on that committee. I am on the board of the Whitney Center for the use of the building for the board.
Right.
So we just had a meeting, and there was zero discussion about the use of the school or using it. We just had a meeting about a week ago.
Well, there wouldn't be discussion about that because this is the first time we're bringing it to the board
Okay.
level to discuss for that. So this
All
is
right.
just kind of putting it out there so that people realize, hey, we might start having to look at using that space. And we're not deciding to do that. We're just saying that, you know, we may have to. We may make that decision in the future, but certainly, Darlene, that's the kind of thing that at the next Whitney Center, the Whitney Oversight Committee meeting should probably be discussed a little bit anyway.
Okay, great.
In the meantime, we have not been accepting any requests and have been turning people away, just saying we're closed because of COVID. So
And that pretty much is what this group has said, that they're not allowing any groups to come in there.
And I think regardless of how the school uses the building, that should probably be the response right now anyway, because of COVID.
Yeah.
And as
Um,
we move away from COVID though, and we still might need more space, I'd look to the staff and to Gail, to say what would they use the, you know, the space for, you know? And then we want to leave it open for them, but community might ask. So I'm just saying, as we look for it, what are we going to potentially use it for? Meeting space or gym class or art class, whatever. So ahead at that, but that's, so eventually we'll be out of COVID and they're gonna be looking to book the space.
right.
The only other thing I would want to add from the facility committee, we went over all of it before, but before our budget hearing, we're hoping to have another meeting, Gail, Jim, Micah, and I with Micah Chur, just to look at beginning drawings of what new space might look like. And at our next meeting at 5:30 on the budget hearing night, I don't remember what date that was, but we'll have we should have a little bit of discussion about that then, because we'll look at what's being proposed or what might be proposed, and we'll have to decide, is that again going to be worth investing large dollars into? And so we'll take a look at it hopefully before that budget hearing, so that we'll still have a chance to amend that number if we want to, but that'll happen anyway.
That'd be great. Great. All right.
So I don't know whether we'll actually be able to bring, hopefully we'll be able to bring some sort of drawings to that board meeting that night so that we can all see, hey, this is what these are some options that we want to look into for adding space to the school.
That would be impressive. Okay. Thank you. Anything else from the facilities committee? We had a policy committee meeting. The minutes didn't make it in time to be part of this main meeting. And the policies were not overly exciting anyway. So we'll put them in for next, and probably others as well. So there was a policy meeting, but not very exciting. Nothing earth shattering. So there's that. And then, okay, so moving on to board discussion, before we get to set the date, I would like to put out there that we're going to try and set a date in April, May for us to have a goal setting session. Gail, a staff member of the school as well, and Sasha has agreed that she would be able to facilitate that. And I'm saying that we are able to set the date now sooner than later, because we're going to have the same board, most likely. Everybody seems to, who has a position up, is still going to be running. So there won't be a change of board necessarily. So I think we can commit our time to either remote, it'll probably be remote at this point in time, but to get the sessions going. Gail has requested it, and I think we should support that. We have a lot of things on the plate, and we would like to get it done sooner than later. So I will be sending out some dates with Sasha in mind, and we can go from there. But does anybody else have any questions in reference to the goal setting session?
Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Is the goal setting session, is it a board goal setting session or a board staff goal setting session? I guess
I think going back, Jerry, to the session we had with Sasha year before last, one of the things that I had asked for in the board, every summer, the admin team for SAU 9 develops a series of goals for the upcoming year. We set our professional development schedule and we all sort of agree to what we're going to work on collectively. Sometimes competing efforts come in for us as a school. So I asked then for if the board has certain things, personalized learning or DEI or whatever the initiative might be, if there are some directive that you have or some direction the board wants to go in, if I know that going into the summer planning session with the other SAU administrators, I can reserve time and be sure that in looking at the schedule for the year, there's adequate time to work on all of the potential goals that we might have.
Thanks, Gail.
Yep, you're welcome.
I want to bring up, so we had talked in the last meeting about this, how the Portrait of a Learner, the strategic plan exists from Conway and adapting it. And what we decided to do is that Jerry and I would run a committee to adapt that strategic plan to Jackson. And what I'm wondering is I don't even know if this is possible. Might not be possible for me, let alone for all of us. But to have done some of that work before we do this goal setting, because they're totally related. And Gail and I were talking about this, then it's like, if we could land that, and again, this is not writing an entire strategic plan. This is taking what Conway's done and like drafting in their wake and saying, this is awesome. Or here's what we want to do to make this Jackson's. And if that could then frame that goal setting, I know Sasha, she'd be on board for that. I think my question is, do we think that that's possible timing wise? If we are looking to do the goal setting, when did you say, Jen, in April?
May. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So what that would mean is that between now and April, we'd want to look at this, like 2 listening sessions, whatever. Jerry and I have been playing a little phone tag, getting set up on this. We'd want to see if we could move that needle forward, because gosh, it would be great if that could all line up.
That would be great. I'm all for that. Whatever I can do to help with that, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
And like, Jerry, I know at the last meeting, I couldn't agree to like sit on that with you all, but what I can agree to is and following the rules so that we're not all 3 talking at any point, but I'm happy to dig into the strategic plan and
That'd be great.
bullet out another voice for you guys, so that when just to basically try to move that needle a little bit, but from a
That'd be
distance.
awesome. That'd be really helpful, Kate. Yeah. Okay. Well then, Jerry, we got to talk.
Yep.
Yep.
And
You and
I
me.
might suggest too, you might want to get some kind of feedback from families and parents.
Yeah. Actually, so one of the things that I wanted to do first, Gail, was basically like have a community visioning Zoom, right? And so, bring faculty, bring students, bring parents all together and do some great whiteboarding and be, Zoom whiteboarding and say, hey, here's what came from Conway. What do you see? Like, what do we want to keep? What do we want to augment? And just have like a really fun facilitated time. I think that would, if we launch like that, then that will help us rapidly interpret this. So 100% agreement on that.
That's awesome. Love it. Anything I can do to help, let me know.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm certainly willing to help you, figure if there's a place for me to do something. Don't
Okay.
hesitate, reach out.
Okay,
Michael?
Darlene. Yeah, that's great. Darlene, I need your phone number. So I look out so I can. But yeah, Jerry, I think when you and I talk, maybe we can talk about how to best use the board without it having to be an extra board meeting, or how to because I think, yes, I would like everyone to be involved in this, right? And trying to make sure we're charting the right way through it. Would be awesome.
We all
I think
can-
this would be really helpful. And I totally want to support you, Gail, not having like 3 strategic plannings, right? It's like this strategic planning and then your goal setting, and you're like, can you all just make this work? So I think if we can help create the kind of base level, I think that would be really key.
Yeah, and that's part of what this whole goal setting session is about, or came from, is because Gail's getting a lot of direction from a lot of folks. So this is more or less what that meeting would be about, is helping Gail decide between SAU, personal goals, the community goals, the school board goals. What are we looking at here, and helping her set some direction, at least from the school board.
Great.
So awesome. All right. And again, happy to help.
Cool.
All right. So anything else? I have that. School board retreat. I would like to put, based on community input, that someone's not here, is saluting the flag, changing the terminology. It has come up again. So I'd like to look into that. What exactly should the terminology be? So I'll follow up on that, but I want it put in the public minutes. And anything else for discussion? Okay. Next date, Thursday, February 4th at 5:30. And then the budget hearing.
We have some comments.
Yep. That's after, right next.
After this?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Wait, is the budget meeting the 4th? Is the school board meeting the 4th?
So typically, what happens is you have a school board meeting at 5:30. Usually that's a lighter agenda. And then you'll recess your school board meeting. And that way, if you have any changes or anything that needs to be done, and then you have the budget hearing at 6 o'clock. So the chair will say, we recess the Jackson School Board meeting for the budget hearing. If there's public there, because it's for the public at that point, and then they give their input, ask some questions, however they choose to, and then you can go back to adjourning you go back into session on your school board meeting.
I
So my
think-
question is that going to be a remote meeting?
I would say at this point, it would be a remote meeting, but I also think it would be a good gauge for us to see where we might lead to for the actual meeting, for the town meeting, school town meeting.
Yeah, I need a decision as to whether it's going to be remote or in person, because it has to be posted in the newspaper.
I
So
would say remote, we're not having any votes on that. So at this point, I think we could safely have that remote. Does anybody else want to chime in on that?
I think we should absolutely do everything remote.
Absolutely.
Yeah, remote's the only thing I would be in support of.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
Yeah, I am too remote.
Jerry
and
and I
just a-
both attended. Jerry, why don't you tell them about the meeting we had today, or where we stand?
Sure, yeah, and just to understand the process a little bit further than what Kevin was just saying. So the budget hearing, before the budget hearing in that meeting, or the regular board meeting at 5:30, we still have the opportunity to move the budget up or down. If we move the budget, so we could actually move the budget up if we wanted to, or down in our regular meeting before the budget hearing. During the budget hearing, we listen to feedback from the community, and that's supposed to give us input as to whether or not we actually are going to further the budget that we're proposing. But if we change, once we have the budget hearing, if we change the budget up, we actually have to have an additional budget hearing after that. So the goal would really be to at that 5:30 meeting, to really have our budget kind of nailed down so that we don't have to change it, because having an additional budget hearing might be next to impossible given logistics and tough schedules. So that's how that works. So the budget hearing, we listen to the input from the community. Then after that input from the community, we go back and actually vote to put those budget numbers on the actual articles. What we did tonight was we voted to put those articles forward to the budget hearing. After the budget hearing, we actually vote to legally put those on the actual warrant, is how that works process-wise. Earlier today, Jen and I sat in on a meeting that the selectmen were having with the town moderator, Bill Kelly, to talk about how are we going to hold town meeting and the school district meeting this year. What's it going to look like? Really, what really came out of that meeting is that there isn't going to be any good options. It's going to be tough. We've already decided on the date of our meeting, so we would have to decide whether we're going to change that or not at this point in time. There are options to have the meeting remote. There's also options to have the meeting live and in person. how those look is going to be determined on what we choose to do. And in the beginning of this meeting, Kevin and Jen and I were talking a little bit about who makes the decision to do it. Technically, it's going to be the school moderator, Sasha, that's going to decide how the meeting is going to run. Meaning, is it going to be in person? Is it going to be remote? But that's going to be in collaboration with what the school board decides as to where it's going to be. Because we decide where it's going to be, and if we decide we want it to be remote, then that's what Sasha will probably agree to, and that's how we'll have it. For remote meetings, we're looking at different options. It's some of it's to have a remote meeting in which you put forth the articles and have a discussion about it. People submit questions, and then we recess and we come back and have an additional session where we actually answer those questions and have further discussion. And then the articles are actually voted on. We can have it in person. And that's what we're really gonna have to weigh this year. Typically, we have very few people showing up to our annual district meeting. And if we have 15, 20 people show up at our meeting, it probably would be safe to have in person at the Whitney Center with good social distancing, mask wearing and everything in place. The problem would be if additional people start showing up, then it's not safe having that many people in the building, and we'd have to shut it down. And that would be something that would be very difficult to do. So we've decided that we're going to have the budget hearing for sure remote, but probably by that night, we're going to have to decide how the actual district meeting is going to run. And we'll have to determine for it at that night, I think. And we'll have more discussion probably. Jen, you and I should probably talk. Kevin, we're going to have to have discussions about this and figure out how to get it done. And Sasha's actually going to have to be included in those discussions as well. But there really isn't going to be any good options. I mean, a remote meeting is going to be a nightmare. In person would be great, but we've got a big increase in the budget this year, and that might draw a lot of people to our meeting. But the flip side of that again is also we have a remote meeting. That's also going to be a difficult way for a lot of people to really weigh in on how they want to decide to handle our budget this year. It's going to be tough, but we'll have to decide what to do.
I can appreciate that.
Oh, sorry, Micah. From where I sit, an in-person indoors at the Whitney Center meeting would be like I would firmly and hopefully expect that we do not do that. It's going to be challenging. There's a lot of things that are challenging right now, gathering our community inside the Whitney Center. I don't think that's appropriate, especially given where we are going to be in March. It's not going to be better. I think it will be likely significantly worse.
One of the most interesting comments that I heard from the meeting that we had today was from Kevin Donahue. And his input was that the only thing that we can do responsibly that we know we can do is we know we can do a remote meeting, and we know that we can pull that off. It might be a lot of work. It might be looking like 2 people manning the chat rooms so that people can give input through chat. It would be the board that would be hosting it. I don't think Kevin can actually host the meeting, so the board would have to be involved in actually hosting the meeting. Again, it's doable, and it's the one thing that we know that we can do and does keep the community safe. So I kind of agree with what Kate said there. Is that my input would be that's where I would lean at this point in time. But
Yeah, just to echo that, I'm 100% in support of that. I think that's a really wonderful way to put it. It's like, that's the thing that we know to do. And I'm happy to do the additional support to help facilitate it, to help host the meeting, and how to make it successful. And I think that, we always have to remember that there are people who might have where the technology might be difficult for people to jump in and weigh in. There are also ways if we have an in-person meeting where there's a whole sector of the public that won't touch that with a 10-foot pole. So either way, as you said, it's gonna be difficult. Like, what's the way to keep our community the safest is doing it remote. So I'm on board for that and for any ways to help.
Yeah, we just have to figure out the logistics of it. And it's not even just the meeting, but also if there's any voting somewhere along the line. I read that we have to do a mail-in ballot. So we just have some questions on how to just iron it out.
Yeah, that would be my only piece is, you're right, Jen. You hold actually several virtual meetings before you even get to that point. And the first one has to be mailed out to everybody in the community, informing them of the date of the first informational meeting. And then from there, you have the second meeting. So there are just some timelines that you need to be cautious of. So if yet Jen, Jerry, and Sasha, we want to get together, let me know, and we can try and wade through this, and if that's a direction that the board chooses.
Yep, and then there's always outside. So
Is anyone
we
cons-
iron it out pretty quickly because there is all of those, as I was reading, all of those dates that we have to mail everything out to the community. Then we have to have a hearing, for the school. I don't know if it's the same for the town, but I just know for the school rules and regulations, there are some of those commitments that we have to do. Kate, go ahead, son, sorry.
Is there any discussion at the town level about being outdoors?
Yeah, we had the meeting this morning. So Jerry and I were on the meeting with the selectmen and their moderator as well, and then the council. And they were coming up with really just brainstorming ideas. And they were saying that, some of the ideas where you can legally postpone, the town can legally postpone their meeting in 2-week intervals so that they could possibly move it from March to like April or, more warm weather to have it outside somewhere. And then there was all kinds of indoors. They came up with actually no direct, no definite answer as to what they're doing. So it just brought up more question actually as to.
Yeah, but what the town has the luxury of, the town has the luxury of postponing it into May if they want to. We have to have ours wrapped up before April 15th.
Right, because of our contract.
Is what we'll be up against, so. But yes, there was discussion about them doing it outside. To me, we could put a big tent in the field if there's no snow there. There won't be in May probably, but there still probably will be in March, so.
Right. I mean, it is possible to have it outside. So we'll get together with Sasha and Jerry, Kevin, and we have to read over the requirements as well, because we should do it within the next few days, because there is some mails out, mailing out to the community and all that stuff that has to be done a certain amount of time before hearings and such. So we need to get on that. All right. Another thing for you to do, Jerry.
Well, I mean, I think between the two of us, Jen, we can, if I can't be there or you can't be there, that I think we should still have the discussion with Kevin and Sasha when we can.
Yeah, we will. And Sasha's been working on it, so she couldn't make today's meeting, but she was aware of what was going on and putting input in, so she's been
Perfect.
active in it. Yep. All right, so I think we set the date for Thursday. We went over the protocol of the meeting and what it's about. Any citizen comments at this time?
There's a
We have
chat.
one in the chat. Yeah.
Was it Jenny?
It is. Jen.
Right, well, where's my mouse? Where'd it go? Oh, there it is.
So I think that's a question best answered by Gail and or Kevin.
Okay.
I can read the question, or Jennifer, you're here, you can ask it. It's up to you.
No, I did just want to say thank you for all the work. And I know that, we're new to the community, but I know that Jackson has put in, like many other schools, significant work into making sure that the school is safe and that our kids are, back in the classroom. And I can't tell you how much we've appreciated that this year. Our son has really thrived at school, being in person. I know that we've also been able to sort of see COVID as something that maybe is coming from outside of our community. And I think that it's just much, much more widespread, and it's here. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit more about, if you've considered, routine testing or short remote breaks. I'm particularly concerned about maybe staff who have children in other schools, and I know that that would complicate their home work life as well. So I'll end there and wait for my comment. Thank you.
So I know, and I'll speak first, and I know Kevin, I'm sure, has a more eloquent answer to this, but some of the reason that we feel at the SAU level, from what I've gathered, is that if we do a break, it does, it allows people to be a little bit more lenient with their diligence against COVID. So they might take the opportunity to travel a little bit more since they can do remote anywhere. So one of the reasons is that we didn't have a longer vacation break for Christmas or take time off in between, is because we didn't want the community at large to drop their guard and say, oh, well, we're not going to be at school, so why don't we go and visit grandma anyway? We can do school from her house. So I think we have made the right choice to stay in school and to keep sending those messages out to the community at large to be vigilant and to not travel and to be safe. And I think that's really why we're in the position that we're in, is because we're in session. So as a school board member and a community member, I would not go with saying we need a short break at this time, unless we're driven by the numbers to do that, like Bartlett has been. Sorry. So that's where I stand on it. So Kevin, do you have any input
I
on
was
that?
going to give you my cell phone and say, Jen, you did such a good job. You can take over my job. In all seriousness, Jennifer, I think Jen hit it on the head. Every time that we've seen an extended break, whether it's Thanksgiving or even now, what we're seeing is kind of that blowback from the longer breaks. You know, you're right. When we are in school, we know from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock, they're masked. They're with small cohorts. We know where they're at. I think a lot of what we're seeing is people, we'd like to say, are vigilant, but people loosen their guard. And I think it's one of those, well, I can go hang out with Pam because I know Pam and my kids kind of play with her kids. And well, then Pam says, well, I'm also going over with Gail's kids. So it is, if it were up to me, I'd be like 5 days a week, every day. And we're just going and we're keeping those kids safe in that controlled environment. But at the same vein, we do recognize that this is starting to spread very quickly. And I think what you'll see is this is different now than it was in September, October, November, and even the beginning of December. So should people expect perhaps that we're going to take a 2-week break? As I said, we've been out, this will be the second week for Bartlett right now. And it may be that they're out next week as well, unless we start to see those numbers drop down. And because we don't want it to spread, and we don't want to compromise staff health either, or you and your family. And that's why we're saying, do as much as you can to keep those cohorts small. And I know it's tough and people are getting fatigued, but for the general folks, we all want to get back to that, but let's do it safely. So there's no plan to build in a remote break at this point. It'll be more based upon the conditions that are in our community and in our schools.
Well, that's a great question.
And I'll tackle the testing part of that real quick. The simplest answer on that is that testing as it exists right now is not an effective way to contain the spread. It's only an effective way to come out of quarantine. And that's the way testing is right now for us.
Well, and in school, any child with any symptom at all gets sent right home and can't come back to school until they have a negative test. So, and we're still being really, really strict on that. But just to speak to your point, Jen, every time there's a student that we send home, we are extra vigilant. And when we know that staff members might have a case somewhere in their families, that's why we set up the, we have every teacher has a backup person within their cohort that only works with their cohort. And when we can no longer cover for people like we have been doing to keep things moving, then that becomes a time where we'll have to take a break. But so far, knock on wood, we've been able to contain the one case that we had was not related to kids. We saw no spread. And so far, we are watching, and I am considering any and all potential options depending on who's getting sick and how connected they are with the rest. If is it a bus? Is it a whole classroom? Is it a a person who, we are doing remote UA, as you know, so we don't have unified arts teachers going into each class. So we're taking a lot of precautions, but we're not precluding any option that we might need to take to keep everybody healthy.
All right, I think that covered that. Thank you. That was
Thank you.
awesome. Yep. Any other citizen comments at this time? I can go down my chat area. Sorry, I'm not using my other computer, so I'm a little off center. All right,
That was the only chat, Jen.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we've signed the manifest.
Motion to adjourn?
Second, I think I covered everything. Yep. All right.
Second.
Thank you, guys. Awesome meeting. Really.
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Jen. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.